So welcome to this Heart-to-Heart special event, where we're going to be putting the spotlight on one of the most innovative of our solutions, nutrigenetics. Over the next 30 minutes, we will explain what nutrigenetics is and what it can do for you. We will hear from two people who've experienced it for themselves and what it kind of told them about themselves. And finally, we'll look at a couple of options of how you can get your own DNA test done. Now, my name's Kim, and this is my husband, Simon.
Hello.
And we're going to be your hosts tonight. When you look at this picture of us, you can see that we are happy, that we like purple as a colour, and that Simon needs to wear glasses. The science of nutrigenetics is about telling you the things you cannot see, but these are all the things that can have a direct effect on your health, and they are things that we should all know about ourselves. As a society, we spend millions on books to tell us how to lead a healthier lifestyle and how to eat better. We buy gadgets that monitor some of our lifestyle to tell us what we should and shouldn't be doing and when. And many of us have those gym memberships determined to get our body into shape. The fact is, though, that for many people, fad diets do more harm than good. Gyms that are full in January are empty by March, and we all have a discarded technology drawer somewhere in the house. The reason for this is that they do not offer us advice that is personal to our own body's instruction manual. But the advent of nutrigenetics has finally made it possible for us to take the guesswork out of getting fit and healthy. We started looking into this last year. We were invited to attend a meeting at the Novogenia laboratory in Austria with a group of entrepreneurs like us ready to explore this exciting new opportunity. Next to us at the back is the CEO and Chief Scientist of Novogenia, Dr. Daniel Wollerstoffer. He founded the company 11 years ago. Not that he looks old enough, he has good genes.
So to start with, we want to give you a quick overview of what nutrigenetics is, what it can do for you, a kind of a nutrigenetics 101, so to speak. So your genetic blueprint contains lots of information about which nutrients your body needs or needs more of than the average person, what you can and cannot metabolize, and what kind of nutrients could be harmful or cause inflammation in your body. Did you know that the human body contains about 50 billion individual cells and that almost every single one of them has a nucleus? And that nucleus contains 46 individual chromosomes. These 46 chromosomes comprise of 22 pairs of X's and 1 pair of Y's. They're the shapes that most of us remember from biology lessons at school. And it's these X pairs that contain our body's instruction manual for nutrition, sporting prowess, and many other things. If you look at a chromosome in more detail, you'll see that it resembles a very tightly wound thread. And this thread is called the DNA double helix. If you stretch the DNA from one cell into a single thread, it would be about 2 meters long. And if you stretched out all of the DNA you have in your body into a single thread, it would be twice the diameter of the solar system. In this DNA double helix, you will find your particular genetic code, which consists actually of only 4 letters, A, C, G, and T. And by using different combinations of these letters, nature is able to build the whole recipe for the human body. Now, within this genetic code, you've got regions, which are called genes. For example, this region represents an enzyme gene, which contains the instructions for the body to tell it how to digest lactose, which is the sugar that is present in milk.
Now, many people talk about genetics being a thing of the future, but actually, genetics is something that has been with us. It's the level of information that we can now get that's new. Nutrigenetics is the science of using our genetic dictionary to determine our optimal personal nutrition requirements. To give an example, let's go back 20,000 years. Most humans at this point were based in Europe and Africa, and were hunter-gatherers. We hunted for food and we gathered plants to eat. All those years ago, babies consumed lactose via breast milk to get essential nutrition as times were very tough and only the strong survived. Lactose itself is essentially one big molecule made up of two small sugars that are attached together. Together, they are too large to be absorbed into the bloodstream, and they would just sit in our intestines after consumption. For babies to be able to properly digest lactose, they needed to have a gene that provided the body with an instruction manual on how to build an enzyme, lactase. Like a pair of scissors, this new enzyme splits the lactose into two smaller sugars, galactose and glucose, which are then small enough to be absorbed for energy. Now, as the babies grow older, they didn't need the gene anymore. After all, there were no supermarkets 20,000 years ago, and we hadn't started rearing cows or other animals. So to conserve energy for the body, evolution gave cavemen another genetic element that turned off the lactose gene based on your age. The older they got, the less it functioned until it switched off entirely. It's very efficient. Now, that wasn't a problem 20,000 years ago. But imagine if we had a time machine and went back and gave an adult caveman a pint of milk from the supermarket. Big problem. The lactose would not be able to be broken down as the scissor gene had been switched off. Bacteria in the caveman's bodies would spot the lactose and think, lunch. It would start to metabolize into gases and acid, causing very severe digestive problems. This is what we refer to today as lactose intolerance.
So the genetic programming that our cavemen had was to produce a lot of lactase enzyme at birth and then to gradually switch it off. In some cases, it happened when they were 8, in others when they were 80, although to be fair, not many of them made it to 80 back then. And some, it happened at all stages in between. Then, around 7,500 years ago, something new happened. We started to farm animals and we had access to milk as adults for the very first time. However, we were still lactose intolerant, so no one was drinking the milk. They were still using the animals just for meat. Then a genetic mutation happened, like an evolutionary spelling mistake. In one person, one of the letters was changed in their genetic code. The lactose gene itself wasn't altered, but the code that turned it off was destroyed. So suddenly, this person was the first person to be able to tolerate lactose as an adult. Now, 5 out of 6 people in Europe have this genetic mutation, the red line that you see in this diagram. This means that the lactase enzyme is constantly being produced and not turned off, so people can tolerate lactose. Mapping lactose intolerance globally has shown scientists that this very first person originated in Sweden. So that's one more thing we can thank them for, as well as IKEA and ABBA. Now, 1 in 6 people still have the old genetic code, like Kim here. So they become more and more lactose intolerant over time, just like their ancestors. You know, it's a really interesting fact that being able to tolerate lactose as an adult, as opposed to being lactose intolerant, is the genetic mutation and not the other way around. So discovering your personal coding enables you to make the right decisions that you need to do to get the best nutrition and to avoid the foods that don't work so well with your individual codes. And this is the science of nutrigenetics, taking the guesswork out of getting fit and healthy.
In 2019, the Heart-2-Heart team brought this innovation science to the UK with 2 world-class companies as partners. Let's tell you about them. To most people, there's probably nothing as personal as your own genetic data. I'm sure some of you may have heard stories of companies storing people's DNA information or selling it to pharmaceutical companies for research. But that's something the Heart-2-Heart team are completely against. That's why we partnered with Novogenia, one of Europe's market leaders in lifestyle and genetic diagnostics, and a global pioneer in preventative genetic diagnostics. You don't have to pray that your information will be treated with the respect it deserves. You know it will. Unlike most DNA testing companies, Novogenia is certified to carry out medical genetic analysis. This means that they meet the high requirements intended for the protection of medical data, not just commercial standards. This also enables them to offer a much more detailed series of genetic analysis, 76 in fact, whilst most commercial companies only do 1 or 2. Your DNA sample will be destroyed immediately after analysis, and the data remains strictly confidential and will never be shared with anyone else. So here's a short overview to let you know more about them.
So, having worked with Synergy for almost 10 years now, most recently on their European Advisory Board, we were very familiar with their world-leading research on gut health and on cardiovascular disease. So it was a natural fit for us to be able to apply the science of nutrigenetics to show which of their clinically proven products are best suited to people. Here's a short overview of Synergy's vision and philosophy.
So, you know, these companies together make a powerful impact on people's health. Before we jump into how the process works and what you can get, what options are available to you to experience this for yourself, and the science behind the nutrigenetics, we would like to ask Nicola Kenworthy to say a few words. Nicola, I don't know if you can unmute yourself. Are you there?
Yeah, I've unmuted myself.
Perfect. Now, Nicola, I know that you did the test at the end of last year. So can you tell us, what did you learn from it?
Well, I mean, basically the biggest thing for me was really finding out that I was celiac, because after, crikey, 28 years ago, being covered in blisters, being told I couldn't eat gluten, but not really it wasn't explained to me. So I carried on eating it, then I gave it up, then I started again, but then I could feel inflammation in my body. And so I knew there was something wrong. So that was the biggest takeaway for me, was to actually find out that I was celiac. So it didn't matter what I was doing to heal my gut. If I carried on eating gluten, the whole it was all going on inside, and I was just damaging it again and again. And then obviously my mum died at 55 from a massive coronary heart attack. My father had his first heart attack at 49. And I could see from my genes that I had that gene. But because I've lived my life I decided to change my life and just live healthy. I'd actually managed to avoid all the symptoms that were associated with that, but also finding out that I can't take omega-3 because I have the the NOS1 gene that can cause my cholesterol to rise, which is something that I absolutely do not want to do if I've got a family history of heart disease. And then there were a few other things that I kind of knew before, that I injure myself very easily, but they're great to know, because then you know you're not going mad, you're not just imagining it. But for me, as I said, the absolute takeaway was finding out that I was celiac and wasn't just intolerant to gluten.
Yeah, so it's amazing, because if you if you don't have the enzymes to break that gene apart, then you know it can cause problems. And so obviously that was really insightful information for you, Nicola.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing that tonight. We really appreciate it.
And like me, you're one of the 17% that can't tolerate omega-3. I'm exactly the same, which in some levels is annoying, because you know it does help regulate cholesterol, but in a more positive way, it means you never need to buy it.
Yeah.
So it's one thing off the shopping list.
Okay. So once your test is processed, you're going to receive a 200-page report giving you some really valuable information. And this information is valuable for your lifetime. Your genetic code is written in permanent ink. It doesn't change from day one on this planet all the way through to your last days. So let's jump in and look at the highlights that this report will show you. So the test can highlight areas of inherent genetic strengths or genetic weaknesses, and how these health deficits can be neutralized through a specifically adjusted diet. We can see, for example, if we have a predisposition for cardiovascular disease, for blood pressure, for osteoporosis and arthritis, for example, or perhaps Alzheimer's or macular degeneration, or if we have the right enzymes to metabolize gluten and lactose. The findings of your optimal nutritional pathway are summarized for you. The larger the arrow, the greater need for this area to be looked at more closely. 900 different food types are evaluated according to your genes, which can help you achieve your optimum health and fitness goals. Green arrows are translated into green apples. The more green apples a food type has, the more nutritional value this item has for you. Red arrows are translated into red apples. The more red apples a food type has, the greater the risk of this food type causing inflammation if it's eaten too often. This is why we say that your genes load the gun, but it is your lifestyle that pulls the trigger. The report has 3 columns for each food type. Apples represent the recommendations for general health. Trophies represent the optimum foods for competitive sport to get the best out of your body. And a warning symbol may be present under gluten or lactose if this food type contains a substance that may cause digestive problems due to your personal genetics. Now, you may have a couple of surprises in store, as some foods that are said to be healthy may not actually be the best nutritional choice for you. For example, on this report, apples and apricots have red apples, which means that the unhealthy constituents greatly outweigh the health constituents for your genetic type. However, clementines and strawberries would be a good choice. Now, we live in a toxic soup these days. And it's interesting because I've heard people argue that our bodies are designed to free ourselves of toxins. Well, perhaps it was someone who was particularly effective at removing toxins that made that argument. Genetically, not everyone is good at removing toxins. The report can tell you how well you cope with atmospheric pollutants such as smoke, fossil fuels, and soot, like char-grilled or burnt barbecued food. Also, if you can neutralize or easily bind out pollutants found in industrial solvents, herbicides, fungicides, or insect repellent sprays, as well as heavy metals such as mercury, lead, and cadmium. Ineffective pathways to remove these toxins increase the risk of many different types of cancers and chronic fatigue syndrome. Further details of how much antioxidants you need, your daily requirement of selenium, and if you can utilize coenzyme Q10 to ubiquinol as an effective antioxidant, or if you're unable to metabolize it, so therefore you need higher levels of vitamin C, E, and A instead. This example here shows how you can learn which supplements your body doesn't process well, so you don't have to buy them ever again, and which you need more of. It really is very thorough and gives you personalized advice.
The muscle structure and talent test looks at both the genetic programming of your muscle fibers to see if they're fast or slow twitch, or a combination of both. This information, along with your capacity to uptake oxygen, which is called your VO2 max, can help you determine if you're better suited to endurance training, for example, long runs or cycle rides, or if you are a total power and better suited for heavy weights and short, sharp bursts. Perhaps, like me, you're a combination of both. The report can tell you if you have high or low aggressive reaction to inflammation and a high or low risk of injury. And this could be very important for team sports. The report can tell you where you should obtain your daily calories from based upon your specific macronutrients for your muscle type and sporting capability. For example, this report shows 48% from carbohydrates, 26% from fat, and 26% from protein. It's advised to revise your diet before a competition to your optimal distribution in order to increase your performance. And this is also taken into account in the trophies column of the foods list that you will get. This comes all together in a strategic plan for any athletic career to best fill the glycogen stores and ensure you remain healthy and in peak form.
Now, our diet contains nutrients that are essential for life and others that prevent illness. Diet is one of the most significant influences on our health. By altering your diet, you can reduce your genetic risks and improve your health and performance. Your genetic analysis results reveal your body's specific needs, making it possible to calculate your personal daily requirements of essential vitamins and minerals, which are then defined in a dietary supplement recommendation personalized to you. And at the back of the report is detailed analysis and reference data of each of those tests that are performed. So there are two options available in the nutrigenetic program. If you're interested in good gut health and balancing your microbiome, then there is the DNA Purify pack. If you're more interested in better circulation and more energy and sports performance, then the DNA Energy pack is the one for you. And you can begin to get your body into great shape whilst waiting for the DNA results. The list price for the DNA test on its own is over £500, so this offer is particularly attractive at the moment, and the results will continue to add a lifetime of value. So let's look at the DNA kit, what you get and how it's processed.
So when you purchase the test, you'll get a box like this arrive, which contains everything that you need to get your DNA tested. To make sure that the laboratory can process your sample, we actually give you 3 swabs instead of 1, just to make triply sure. The swabs themselves are attached to the tube lids, so you don't need to handle them. And the tubes themselves use a special air drying technology to make sure that your DNA doesn't degrade while in transit to the laboratory. It's a very, very simple 3-step process. The first step is to register your test online, And this ensures that the sample that's processed by the laboratory has your unique ID code associated with it. And this also means that the scientists that process your DNA test have no access to your personal details. They just use the ID number that is found in the box. This ensures the privacy of your results being associated to you, as the laboratory doesn't store your details at all. The actual swab process itself is very simple, and there's also a video that you can watch which explains exactly what to do to get the best results. And lastly, once your DNA test has been processed, you'll receive your 200-page report as a PDF, and you can choose to have it printed as we did, or you can just use the digital version. Once your report is ready, a trained Heart-to-Heart team member will take you through the report, highlighting key areas, discovering any eureka moments that you might have, and also discussing any questions that you might have about the report.
So, we hope you've enjoyed this webinar on nutrigenetics and the process of getting your DNA tested and what it can show you about your own genetic instruction manual. Imagine knowing which nutritional supplements work best with your genetic code and which may have no effect at all. Would that help you spend your money on the right things to benefit your health? Imagine knowing which foods to avoid in the supermarket and which to stock up on next time you go. And if you're into sports and fitness, imagine the performance boost this analysis will provide to help you achieve and go well beyond your personal goals. So the person who's invited you to this talk will be contacting you to get your feedback on the event. And we really do appreciate all your comments. It helps us to make every event we do better than the last. And if you'd like to get started with your nutrigenetics and do your own DNA test, they can help you place an order. And they can also ask them, you can also ask them for free ebooks, which go into more details about both the DNA Purify Pack and the Energy Pack. So we hope that you found this webinar really interesting this evening and learned some things that are the most advanced science in how to look after yourself. We'd like to thank you for your time this evening, and we wish you a very good rest of the evening. Goodbye now.
Cheerio.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you very much, Nicola.